Welcome to course number 6 of the first module. Here we will see the water reuse situation in Pakistan, where we've come from, where we are, and where we're going. First, we will see that water reuse is common in Pakistan. Then we will take a look at a case study, the economic and sanitary aspects, and finally we will see some water reuse projects in Pakistan. Pakistan has a largely agriculture-based economy, with around 40% of workers directly employed in the sector, and around a quarter of Pakistan's land area under cultivation. The need for irrigation water is ever present across a landscape interconnected by a vast system of rivers, streams, and canals. Much of the wastewater produced by the population's urban and rural centres is discharged into these waterways, untreated, where it is more or less diluted and reused downstream for irrigation. In 2004, 80% of all Pakistani communities with a population over 10,000 used untreated wastewater for irrigation. Estimates from 2021 show significant challenges lay ahead for wastewater management in Pakistan. Although there are wastewater treatment plant construction and renewal projects underway in some parts of the country, only a small percentage of the total volume of wastewater is currently treated. This means that around 1 billion cubic meters of untreated wastewater, or about 1/4 of the total produced, is directed for irrigation across approximately 32,000 hectares of land. Let's take a closer look at a town where irrigation with untreated wastewater has been practiced for many years, Harunabad. It's important to note that this case study is not representative of all situations in Pakistan, as it is from a relatively small rural town with a very arid climate, particularly in comparison to the larger cities. However, it serves as an example to illustrate some key important dynamics of wastewater use in Pakistan. With a population of around 140,000, the town of Harunabad is part of the Bahawalpur division in southern Punjab, just near the Indian border. The climate is arid, with only 160 millimeters of average annual rainfall. Combined with very high summer temperatures and levels of evaporation, agriculture is virtually impossible without irrigation. The community is dependent on water supply from the irrigation canal, supplied from the Sutlej River to the north, for all its water needs, including drinking. The groundwater is too saline for drinking or agricultural purposes. The information presented here is based on a detailed case study by the International Water Management Institute from 2002. It provides information to understand the development of the practice of untreated wastewater irrigation in Pakistan, as well as the many complex, interrelated issues for governments, farmers, the community, and the environment. The town of Harunabad's sewer system was constructed in 1965, and shortly after construction, farmers began pumping untreated wastewater from the disposal station for irrigation. 1979 saw an intense monsoon and severe damage to the sewer system. Several pumps were installed around the town to remove the blocked wastewater. These pumps were then utilized for ongoing irrigation of more fields. In 2002, approximately 50% of the 115-hectare study site was exclusively irrigated with untreated wastewater using flood irrigation methods. Other fields were irrigated with either canal water or a combination of canal water and wastewater. Those fields that had access to both sources of water generally only used one source at a time, and dilution was not generally practiced. The main crops grown were vegetables, in particular cauliflower, cotton, and animal fodder. Differences in irrigation frequencies were observed between crops due to water need, but also between fields that were supplied with wastewater compared to canal water, due to the supply agreements related to each water type. Fields irrigated with wastewater often saw 3 crops harvested each year, compared to only 2 for fields irrigated with canal water, thanks to several factors including nutrient levels and consistency of supply. Fields irrigated with wastewater saw up to 9 times more nutrients applied compared to recommended levels, meaning that much of the nutrients were lost to the groundwater or deeper soils not accessible by crops. Farmers using untreated wastewater had to use more pesticides because of excessive weed and vegetation growth, in general due to the abundance of nutrients. This led to more pest attacks on crops than normal. Already saline groundwater was made more saline due to wastewater infiltration. It also increased microbiological contamination of the groundwater. Although not relevant for the drinking water supply of this community, this is an important indicator for other areas that do rely on groundwater for drinking water. Additionally, soils irrigated with untreated wastewater may contain higher levels of certain heavy metals. Short-term health concerns of using wastewater for irrigation are often focused on microbiological aspects. Samples of the wastewater used for irrigation in Harunabad were tested, saw an E. coli count of 6.3 times 10 to the power 7, or 63 million. The World Health Organization limit for irrigation water is 10 to the power 3, or 1,000. It is also important to note that the canal water was tested and was also over the World Health Organization limit, with an E. coli count of 1,600. It is common in Pakistan for regular canal and river irrigation water to exceed the health and agricultural water quality standards. But the contamination levels are generally several orders of magnitude lower than untreated wastewater. Accumulation of metals in the soil is a risk for human health, as some crops can readily accumulate metals in their edible portions. Soil metal accumulation was seen in this area, but the assessment was made by the authors of the study that by the time that it is likely to become a health problem in the following decades, that much of the land then used for wastewater irrigation will have been transformed to residential areas, and so this will cease to be a problem. Land use patterns are not always static. It is unclear to what extent this assessment happened in reality over the past 20 years, and to what extent it is applicable to other similar areas in Pakistan. What it does show is the complex interaction between historical land use practices and planning for future water and land resource uses into the future. For example, focus may be required on areas with significant industrial sectors, which are likely to discharge wastewater with higher levels of heavy metals compared to domestic wastewater. The scheduling of irrigation by farmers in the study was not generally crop demand driven, but based on fixed allocations decided by a relatively small group of farmers. This led to over-irrigation and an over-application of nutrients. The study authors suggest that dilution of wastewater with canal water would lead to improved nutrient efficiencies and an expansion of the area under wastewater irrigation. Dilution would also lead to a reduction in E. coli and worm egg counts, but these will in most cases remain above World Health Organization guideline limits. Many adverse health effects were experienced by farmers in direct contact with untreated wastewater during irrigation activities. It suggested that protective gear, like boots and gloves, are unlikely to find wide acceptance with farmers because of the hot climatic conditions. Education efforts may assist in the acceptance of such measures where it's not yet possible to improve the treatment of wastewater at the source. For farmers and workers exposed to untreated wastewater, regular treatment with anti-worm medication and improved hygiene should be implemented. Now we're going to look a bit deeper into the economic aspects of untreated wastewater reuse for irrigation. It has been noted that the high nutrient content of wastewater provides benefits to irrigators through an increased harvest volume, leading to increased revenue. This, in turn, can lead to increased land values for those who have access to those wastewater flows. This increased economic value due to wastewater irrigation leads to competition for it and associated resources, such as the land. For example, in Harunabad, land value and rents were seen to be on average 3.5 times higher for land irrigated with wastewater. Another study from Faisalabad district in Punjab saw more than double the return on investment overall for crops irrigated with wastewater compared to freshwater. Meanwhile, other studies have noted increases in household income and the generation of additional employment opportunities due to the practice. Since there are real benefits from this practice, competition for access to wastewater is often seen. Different locations may manage the sharing and distribution in different ways, but one common way is an auction process to determine the allocation of volumes and timing of delivery of wastewater to irrigators. In these processes, farmers often organize themselves into small bidding groups, each with a bid leader. The highest bidding groups obtain the rights to reuse the wastewater and also to resell any surplus wastewater to other farmers. Farmers can pay up to around 50% more for untreated wastewater than for treated wastewater, showing the value placed on the higher nutrient content of untreated wastewater. These economic benefits and existing practices require consideration for how to manage any shift toward higher rates of wastewater treatment for the irrigation communities affected. Although many farmers and communities receive some economic benefit from using untreated wastewater for irrigation, there are also many adverse health effects that need to be understood and considered in order to make wise water management decisions. Physical contact with untreated wastewater can lead to parasite infections such as hookworm and other bacterial and viral waterborne diseases. Infections of all kinds lead to more days where farmers, their family, or consumers are unable to work or study, potentially decreasing income as well as increasing medical costs. There are also risks of heavy metal contamination that can accumulate in the edible part of certain plants. Some long-term effects of wastewater exposure remain unknown. According to several studies, the average number of days a person is sick is higher in areas where untreated wastewater is used for irrigation compared to freshwater. Moreover, the expenditure on health-related items and services also increases along with the number of days of illness. If the practice of untreated wastewater irrigation continues, then there are suggestions for how to manage the practice to reduce the health implications. These include restricting the crop varieties permitted to be irrigated to non-vegetable crops, such as cotton, lawns, ornamental crops, or crops cooked well before consumption. Crop types and irrigation techniques that allow for minimum contact of the farmer with the water are also important considerations. There are also some types of plants, such as the mustard, crucifer, and cabbage family, that more readily accumulate heavy metals in their edible parts that should not be irrigated with untreated wastewater. It's not known how much illness nor how many deaths occur from the practice of untreated wastewater reuse for irrigation. However, the sewage system is known to be a source of contamination for drinking water supplies, which are thought to be the major pathway for people to contract waterborne diseases. In 2017, it was estimated that there were 2.5 million deaths in Pakistan just due to diarrhea, and that 40% of deaths each year occur due to the consumption of contaminated water. Wastewater used for irrigation also infiltrates into and contaminates the groundwater, which is also a source of drinking water for some communities. This level of illness and death, while not solely related to untreated wastewater reuse for irrigation, is devastating for families and communities, leading to long-lasting socio-economic impacts. A study in the Punjab region, published in 2022, found that farmers using wastewater have relatively little knowledge of its negative effects on human health. Therefore, water reuse in Pakistan will also require integration with the ongoing development of the sewage system and treatment capacity, as well as education of farmers. Efforts along these lines are already underway in some places around the country. Wastewater reuse concepts and projects have been developing in Pakistan, and it's not only used for agriculture. Here we look at some other innovative projects taking place. Several university research programs are focused on the development of wastewater treatment technologies, especially low-cost methods, such as testing different trickling filter media and constructed wetlands. We will talk more about different treatment methods and technologies in a future module. The Metropolitan Corporation of Islamabad, in collaboration with the United Nations Development Programme, developed a prototype for recycling water at car wash stations in 2019. This demonstration used on-site storage tanks with sedimentation, chemical and biological treatment to enable the reuse of water collected. A service station uses on average 19,000 litres of water per day, and much of this can be saved by installing such systems. Pakistan is a Muslim country with many mosques. Each visit to a mosque includes washing of the face and parts of the body, or an ablution. This practice uses about 5 to 7 litres of water per person per visit. In 2021, the Lahore College for Women University, in partnership with the WWF, installed a treatment and storage tank at a mosque in Lahore. This system was connected to an irrigation system for a nearby park, saving around 170,000 litres each year and improving the urban landscape. The project was replicated at 9 other mosques in Lahore and Multan, with a combined water-saving potential of 31.7 million litres per year. This concept is seen as relatively easy to replicate, given the water produced at mosques usually has low levels of contamination requiring minimal treatment, and that most mosques have a park within the vicinity. 2 major textile factories in Karachi have installed advanced wastewater treatment plants to reduce pollution to the environment and to reuse the treated water in their processes. The textile industry requires large volumes of water for various processes, such as chemical dyeing of fabric and printing. Companies have seen an up to 60% reduction in water use thanks to recycling efforts. Low-tech options for wastewater treatment include the installation of floating wetlands on ponds or lagoons. Floating structures are secured in place and allow selected plants to grow at the surface of the water. The roots of the plants grow down into the water and provide excellent habitat for microbial life that does the work of removing some pollutants and nutrients. The process of using plants to treat pollution is called phytoremediation. The pictures seen here are from a 2019 project in Chokara, Faisalabad, completed by a partnership between the Worldwide Fund for Nature, the National Institute for Biotechnology and Genetic Engineering, and the Water and Sewerage Authority of Punjab. Lab-scale floating wetland studies are also being conducted. One such project is underway in the nearby city of Sialkot, with the aim to improve the treatment of industrial wastewater from local tanneries. In addition to the various actions we've just described, there are also some large-scale investments taking place in Pakistan that could see some significant improvement in the quality of wastewater being discharged into the environment or being reused for irrigation. One component of the Lahore Water and Wastewater Management Project, which is funded by the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, will see the construction of 3 new wastewater treatment plants in Lahore, as well as a major upgrade of the sewer network. Lahore's 11 million people depend entirely on groundwater for all their water needs. Part of the project is to provide additional water supply from an alternative surface water source. The wastewater component will help to reduce the contamination of the groundwater and reduce the health risks for irrigation with wastewater. At the start of 2023, this project had not yet started construction, and the completion date was not yet known. Faisalabad will also see a new wastewater treatment plant being constructed in the years to come. The project, in collaboration with the Government of Denmark, is expected to treat 44 million gallons of wastewater per day. This will improve the quality of water discharged into the River Ravi, which is used for irrigation.